Hello everyone, this is Crystal Potthoff from Prayerful Arts, and today's hopefully a quick video, but I have some videos coming up soon that will be on how using the grid pattern. I have a couple of patterns that some viewers have sent me that I would like to, that they have given me permission to share with you on YouTube, so thank you for that. But in order to do these, you really have to grid out the egg. So I was never a fan of gridding eggs. I thought it took too long. I didn't want to do it. It was too much measuring. I had lots of excuses. And then I got this book by Susan Jones. Actually, what happened was I started doing some quilt patterns. And then I got this book by Susan Jones, Grid and Bear It. And it really opened my eyes to how wonderful it is to grid out an egg and all the different possibilities when you want to do that. Now, not every pattern requires you to grid out the egg. But if you do want to grid it out, these are just some simple instructions. Susan's book goes into a lot more detail, but this is a way that you can grid out your egg. Now, I am going to use my watercolor pencil that I tested and worked. It did not stay on the egg. It washed off, and it was covered by dye, and it lifted off with the wax. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to divide the egg into 8 sections. So I'm going to go with the 90-60. And you want to be fairly precise when you do this. And I say that and I just missed the mark that I drew. You don't have to be exact, but you do want it to be pretty close to being evenly divided so that you'll have a nice even grid for your design. And I'm really excited to show you these designs. I've been kind of playing around with them before I showed you because I had to figure them out for myself first. All right, so now we're going to mark the equator. And one of the best places to go for these kinds of designs are quilt patterns. Quilt patterns they're blocks of squares, you know, and some of them are gridded out for you. I did a bunch of quilt inspired patterns last year for a show, and I didn't know about the gridding at that time. And it would have made some of what I did a whole lot easier. So now I have my equator drawn. Now we're going to get started on the gridding portion of the egg. You do need to know how wide your pattern is. So if your pattern takes up 8 squares or 3 squares or whatever it does to repeat, that's how you will know how to divide the egg. So let's say I have a pattern that repeats every 4 squares. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the distance from here to here. And I'm going to use the centimeter side because that's easier for me to divide into 4. So it's like 35. So we're going to say 36 divided by 4 is 9. So I'm going to make a little mark right there, a little mark here, and a little mark here. You can also eyeball it if you want, because that doesn't look real good. This one should probably be over. So there's 4. So now I'm going to draw these up to the top and the bottom. Okay, now the other trick I learned the hard way is put a little E on your equator line so you know that's the equator line, because you're going to draw a bunch more lines. And I did that once, and after I drew the lines, I'm like, which one was the equator line? So now what I'm going to do is, so that was like 9. So I'm going to mark here about what I think would look like. And you can measure this more accurately than what I'm doing. But I'm measuring this distance because I want it to be about even. So I measure this distance and then I go up the same distance. So this distance and this distance are the same, theoretically. Now I'll do the same thing here. So I see this one's not quite as wide, so I'm going to do this. And I've found, I'm measuring, but sometimes I find that I really kind of do better eyeballing it. And you have this line to use as your guide. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. So that looks about square. All right. And we'll do the same thing here. And I'll do one more. Oh, maybe we'll do 2 more. This one and this one. All right, now I'm going to count how many lines I drew because I want to draw the same number here. So I drew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I drew 6 lines, and that means I have 7 squares going that way. So the first couple, let's measure them. This one should be about here. So that's line number 1. Line number 2. Line number 3. 4. Oh, am I going to get it in? Maybe not. 5. Okay, I did not get in the same number. Unless I do this and say, well, voila, 6. Okay. So this is a grid pattern. So if my egg was a 4x4, I would be using 1, 2, 3. So I'd be using this right here. You know, I think I drew that one too big. When you go to do this, you take way more time measuring yours out than I did. Okay, so here is a 4x4 grid. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a 4x4 grid. And this is how I do it. If it's an 8x8 grid, then what I do is I just divide these in half. I just do that. I kind of go through and do that. This is where having your equator marked is really helpful. Now, I'm not going to do it all the way up, but you kind of get the idea. And obviously, you want to do it a little more carefully than what I'm doing. I have found that these watercolor pencils, at least the 2 colors I've been using, they also don't smudge, which was nice. Okay, so now that's an 8x8 grid. It's the same size, but it's divided into 8. And it really depends on your pattern and what it looks like. I know it looks like a lot of little squares, and at first it really bothered me, but it really helped me draw more even designs, especially when I'm drawing the designs that weave in and out, or I haven't done it a lot, but a Celtic pattern, it helps a lot for that. Now, you don't have to do it in 4s. you can do it in 3s, 5s, whatever, for your initial measurement. So let's say we just wanted to do 3s. So if we wanted to do a 3, it's still 36. So I'm just going to do that. And I'll do the same thing. I'll come up like this. And so now it's 3, but my squares are going to be bigger. They're going to be, so my initial squares are going to be, you know, they're going to be bigger than what the other ones were. Maybe I shouldn't have drawn it right next to it. So you can kind of see the difference. It takes a little time to do this, but it is very worth it if you're going to do a pattern that has a lot of lines that need to line up precisely. And you're going to see it in the patterns. I only have one of them really completed to show you. And I'm looking around and I don't see it on my desk. I don't know what I did with them. But practice gridding your eggs. The first one we're going to do is going to be an 8. And then the next one will be a 3. But I'm going to do it in 3. And then I'm going to come back and divide it again. So it'll actually be 6. Because if the pattern repeats every 3 squares, but if I did it like this, it would be huge and you wouldn't get as much on it. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to grid out one 8, and then I'm going to grid out the second one as 6. If you have some time, grid out an egg. You'll be all ready for when we get started. And I'm very excited to start doing this. So if you haven't already, please consider signing up for the private Facebook group, Peripheral Arts-Pysanky, and you can share pictures or designs there that you've done, and I'll be sharing some of these eggs too. And Deborah and Laura, thank you for your ideas on the designs that I'm going to be showing soon. And again, I'm very excited. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.